Welcome to Steps Podcast. Thank you so much for listening in every single week. As you guys know, I have a different guest who will come on the show and talk about all things ADU, all things multifamily, all things real estate investment strategies. And I'm very selective of who I have on. These are very highly vetted individuals, highly experienced people who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of value to bring to you guys every single week. If you have someone who you think might be a good fit for the show, make sure you guys reach out to me. And another way to stay connected, I know that some of you guys are listening in every single week on the podcast, and you may not know that I do have my active YouTube channel where I'm always sharing other sorts of tips and tricks on what I'm actively doing on myself as an ADU strategist and consultant and investor. And then also, make sure you guys reach out and follow me on Instagram, Steph Sells ADU. I constantly have different content on there showcasing a lot of what the strategies that we're talking about on this podcast, whether it's midterm, ADUs, multifamily, acquisitions, you name it, just property management, mom life, all the things. Make sure you guys follow me on there so we can continue to cultivate this relationship. Now, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. Another week here at Steps Podcast on all things ADUs, real estate investing. Today we're talking about construction, we're talking about tech, and a whole bunch of other cool things. And as you guys know, each week I have a special guest who's here to give us a lot of value and teach us more about like what's working in today's market, what's not, what should we be considering. And I'm excited. Today we have Ethan. And I'm going to hand it off to him so he can tell you guys a little bit about who he is, what he does, and how we got here today to this episode.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time here. Ethan Wolferman. I have been working in construction in LA for about the past 15 years, and a good portion of that time has been with tech meets construction companies. I have assisted with the construction of over 200 ADUs between LA and San Diego. I have worked with hundreds of contractors, over 150 in the LA area, and seen bids from thousands of different projects. So that experience has just led me to really understand where current market pricing is, how different people present, what to look for in bids, what to look for in your contractor, and how to, efficiently complete your project.
I love that. And I don't think I've dedicated a podcast where we talk about like a breakdown of how contractors should be implementing tech into their business. I have talked about in the past about how there's a huge, and I think I told you, or I was telling somebody in one of my meetups, there's a huge skill gap in the trades industry and age gap at that, right? So how do you even implement technology into everyday construction, right? With men who, most of them are men, right? There's some women that are in there too, but the majority of men, I mean, I see it day to day as well. They just don't have technology and systems and processes. And so it's more of a reactionary type of business where they just react to business coming at them. And then that causes a whole bunch of other things that happen throughout the process, and the experience that the consumer or the client gets is completely like different than they would had they implemented good systems, right? And a lot of it I talked about in the past in the other episode was sometimes like just old ways of mindset and how people in the trades work, and not being open-minded to pivoting or implementing technology, and now even AI, right? And all these things. So I really am excited for you to kind of share, like, how do you do it, right? And how do you help others? Because if you're done over 200 projects, you've definitely worked with all types of trades, all types of subs, the ones who probably don't have these systems in place. So how do you get them to adapt to how you work so that you can deliver not only a great product but a good experience for everyone involved, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the most obvious things is that construction is a bit of an antiquated industry, right? We're building the same way that we built 100 years ago, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, as far as the actual construction goes, I think there are a lot of things in the pipeline that are coming. Prefab panels with insulation with that are malleable that you can customize some way, shape, or form. Um, there are things in the pipeline, but when dealing with a pre-existing structure, most of those are kind of out the window because you're tying into tying into something that was built with a stick built frame generally.
Right.
And as far as price points and compatibility go, all of these need to go through quality control, Title 24, structural engineering,
Mhm.
state and site specific measurements that don't always work. From the build side, things are very slow to advance technologically. If you're building ground up, there are more options, but what you lose there is some autonomy on selection for the most part, right? You're getting
I
something
agree.
that is
Mhm.
a prefab.
Right.
Windows and doors need to be in a specific spot. It just loses potentially some character and some usability on your site. If it's an ADU,
Right.
how does that line up from a privacy standpoint? Is it delineated? What are you going to use it for? And then historically, they're not appraising as well because they don't have a cohesive match on the property.
Right.
The biggest step up in technology has been in satellite mapping and accessibility to different ordinances and requirements on sites. So I think the biggest thing that is improving really is that communication up front so that you can set expectations properly for a project and for the most part avoid these change orders, time lengthening processes downstream.
Mm.
um, there are a lot of programs where you can drop floor plans onto a property, actual structures onto a property, understand what setbacks are required for that specific structure. As you know, ADUs are different than a primary home, than a garage, right?
Right.
It all depends on what that building is classified as. So I had an ADU company in 2019, 2020, very early on, that I didn't do a great job vetting my contractors on the build side. And, I'd go to a site, and one site in particular where we were doing a garage conversion with an addition, and they had dug the foundation 3 feet from the property line as opposed to 4, right? And I'm looking at the plans, and that's what the plans state, but the survey was off, right? So it was off by a foot. These are things that are so easily avoidable now with the
Right.
implementation of additional technology, where it's like, well, that just can't be there. You can't plan this. There's no reason, you know, that you would push forward with this specific dig. So things like that are just they're so much easier to find and flag early on,
Right.
so that you don't have these hiccups downstream. In addition to costs, I mean, that's one of the big things that I've been able to really gather a ton of information on, is differences in costs and what a project really is versus what it's quoted out as. And I think that's a big help from some of the tech industry, because we're not working with one specific builder. I've worked with hundreds of builders. I see what these prices are, and the parity on a project, as you know, can be very wide. You can have a 30 to 40% price gap, and understanding why that gap is there is super important.
Yeah, and I think that's the missing link for a lot of homeowners or investors is how do they kind of spot out the difference and why is there such a huge gap, right? And it's understanding
Yeah.
how to read the actual bid, how, like, what does that payment schedule look like? Just transparency throughout the contract sometimes is very vague depending on who's really helping you, right? And what their process looks like. And because
Yeah.
everybody uses a different process, you can have a very different experience with each builder, right, or contractor. But what are some of those platforms? Like, for example, with Cameron, we use Builder Trend,
Yep.
and I really like Builder Trend. You know, it's very, very transparent, and it kind of keeps everyone involved. Everyone in the team gets to see what that dashboard and what the back end looks like. Now, how do you get people to actually go on there, take the picture of the invoice, submit it, upload it, take pictures of the site, and like stay consistent with that? Because
Yeah.
that's the hard part. I mean, the technology can be there and it can be the best, but if you're not utilizing it, it doesn't really help you. I mean, maybe now with AI and integrating that and automating a lot of it, but to
Yeah.
some extent, right? Like you still have to be hands-on and adding details and information from each project.
Yeah, I think communication is key upfront and throughout the project, and whatever platform a homeowner wants to. I mean, text messages are fine, honestly. Builder Trend's a really nice platform because contractors can upload all sorts of information, and you're not inundated with consistent notifications on your phone. But as long as there's something that you are comfortable
That
with as
works
a
for you.
homeowner, yeah, whatever that is. Now, the information up front is obviously the most important. What's your schedule of payments look like? What is your total cost? And is this going to be the real price for the project? On a ground up build, you really should not have change orders unless they are dictated by the homeowner, right? So if you're building a new ground up ADU or a new home, whatever the case may be, you should have a design in place, structural engineering, Title 24. Once that is done, that's all the information they need. You have finishes, obviously, and you want to get a construction plan. So, what your how much flooring you need, which type of flooring you're going with, countertops, cabinets, all of that, and then you go through that construction plan so that if your shower head is a waterfall shower head or a wall mount, that plumbing run is decided before they start
Beforehand.
building. Yeah, so everything's in place. You have your materials, you have your build. They can just kind of hit the go button. You really shouldn't have change orders unless you as a homeowner are making um, alterations to what's there, or they start digging and find an abandoned septic tank or fossils or
Right,
whatever,
right.
something that's totally unexpected. And this is where construction gets a really bad reputation, is that historically contractors have to underbid to win jobs and then charge change orders to make money. So as a
Exactly.
homeowner, if you have that ADU build and one contractor's 100, another one's 150, another one's 200, the inclination is to be like, I'm going to go with this person that's 100K.
Right. But what you
But
don't know is those hidden costs of change orders. And you're right. A lot of contractors have that mindset, unfortunately, where they do exactly that. Like they'll give you the lowest bid just to get the contract signed. Once the contract is signed, then there's
yep,
all these other change orders or hidden fees or, cap fees on certain things. And now if you
yeah.
want something different, it completely changes the bid. Now you're 150 in, which you could have just gone with that design and build firm that quoted you the 150 from the
And it
beginning.
would have felt better. Yeah.
It
Because
would
then
have
you know
felt
what's
better.
going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I like to
Yeah.
be super transparent with our bids, and I tell them to go get 2, 3 other bids. Like do what you have to do, to get
Yeah.
yourself educated and understand it. And even when I'm going over the bid, I'm like, hey, here's what the payment schedule looks like. Here's like the series of events of what's going to happen. Here's the cost breakdown, and anything additionally would be because of either change orders or because you want something specifically that's not included in this contract. Like you want to pay additionally more for, let's say, flooring. We'll cover up to $2, but if you want to pay anything additional like that would be out of your pocket. So I'm very
Yeah.
transparent, and I tell them if you're going to go and get a bid from another contractor, make sure that they're not asking for ridiculous amount up front, or that they're even giving you like the lowest bid. Like be careful about that too, because
Yeah.
that cheapest one is going to be the most expensive many times. And
Yeah.
sometimes I have it where they're like, oh well, I went with this other person, and then they're calling me back 6 months later, and unfortunately, like, you call me back and my contractor or the people that I work with aren't going to want to take that job because of liability reasons, or because it just doesn't pencil out for them anymore. They're not here to clean up someone else's mess, and now you're struggling trying to figure out, well, who's going to finish my project, right?
And
And
that's a really good point, is that contractors generally don't want to pick up where someone else left off, right? And
right.
there are some bad actors out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the bad reputation is based on communication up front and expectation setting up front, but there are also there are players that will intentionally underbid with the knowledge that they're going to change order this process downstream. And so you run into that situation where it's like, I don't really want this person to finish my project. I can't get someone else to do it. So now you have a time lapse, you have a additional money spent on this, and it's just a super frustrating process. So getting the right builder for the job up front is key. And what you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
with
Yeah, and I've
communication
talked a
and
lot about
pricing.
that, like vetting the right contractor, but sometimes, they just don't know how to read a bid. So how would you
Yeah.
break that down to someone who is kind of looking at 2 to 3 different bids, right? How do
Yeah.
we simplify reading a bid, what to look out for, what are some of those tips that you'd say?
Yeah. So different contractors present in different ways. So first, look at the actual scope of work, because one contractor might be including finished materials and allowance for your HVAC, solar, and appliance allowance, and another contractor doesn't have any of those items, right? So when you look at the bottom line, these numbers might feel drastically higher, but then you start to break it down. You say, oh, well, there's 10K in flooring, there's 15,000 in a solar allowance, there's a landscaping allowance, and you really break it down line by line, and they're much closer than you think. The other thing is that contractors will give you bids based on a need versus want basis. So if you are working with a contractor that is nearby or has other projects nearby, there is cost efficiency there, and shifting labor around. Management costs are more efficient if your project manager is driving, a short distance from the office or a short distance from job site to job site. There can be tens of thousands of dollars savings there. Also, what their pipeline looks like. If you're working, and not every contractor is good for every project, right? So if you're working with a contractor that is a great contractor, they built your neighbor's house and they did an incredible job and everything was perfect, and you want them to convert your garage, that might not be an ideal project for them,
Right.
because they are an in-demand contractor, especially right now when there's lots of houses being built.
That's
They
so
may
important. Yeah.
Yeah, that project may be nice to have at a certain price point, but it's going to come in higher than someone that specializes in garage conversion, is more hungry for that project, or has a crew that's finishing up a job and they don't currently have somewhere to put them, right? So just at least understanding like a general overview of what their pipeline looks like, where they're located. So that can cause a huge parity in the bid as well, right? One contractor might be hungry and the other one's like, I'd like to have it, but it only makes
But I
sense.
don't need it because I've got 20 other projects. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's such
Yeah.
a huge point there, because you're right. And then the hard part here is finding that one contractor that's highly motivated and will actually deliver with the product too, right?
Yeah.
And get it to the finish line. But also has the like somewhat of an experience. You don't want to get someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the ones that are willing to take on, let's say, that garage conversion, or even the small junior ADU, or even like a small renovation, are probably the ones that aren't as busy. Not to say that they're not good, but maybe they're just starting off. So
Yeah.
getting with a group who is very hyper local to that specific area and has, a couple of projects, but just enough to give yours enough attention, versus the ones that are bidding you probably at a higher price point is because they are a little bit busier. And unfortunately, the good ones are busy right now because the demand is still there, right? We're on
Yeah.
track to build, I don't even know how many ADUs for this year, but the demand is there and it's going to continue to grow. And so you have to think about that too. Like, okay, well, if I want to work with this person, you may have to pay a premium in order for it to make sense for them, which sometimes does save you time and money versus having to go with somebody who
Yeah.
doesn't have the experience and you're kind of just like, you know, winging it and praying that they'll get it done.
Yeah. And garage conversions are, there's such parity in garage conversions because because it's a pre-existing structure and you don't really know what's there until you start digging. There's certain things you can look for that will indicate whether or not there is a foundation as opposed to a slab, or potentially footings, but you don't know till you start digging. And oftentimes plans will be delivered. You'll have permits ready for your garage conversion where there are certain things that are still verified in field, right? So, footings or foundation to be verified in field. So you might get into this and realize, oh, this has, a 6-inch footing and you need 18, or it's just a slab on grade. And these can be huge costs to
Huge
the
difference.
foundation. So, I have had people bid out garage conversions at like $80,000 and
Mhm.
that same job be 160, right? And it's not getting done for $80,000 unless your
No,
garage
no.
is attached. It is new construction. You have stem walls. You have
And
footings.
it's like 200 square feet, maybe.
Yeah, and all the utilities are easily accessible, and you don't need upgrades. Like there's just so many factors to it, um, and it
Yeah,
can
I've said that
happen
many
really
times.
at
Like
those.
I've said so many times, garage conversions are very tricky to bid out. I mean, I
Yeah,
usually say about 120 to 150,000 for a typical garage conversion in LA or Orange County.
yeah,
But even then, even with that price range, it could be more, right?
yeah,
Because we don't know not just what the current condition of the structure is, but everything around it, like utility access,
yeah,
sewer line access. If that sits pretty far and there is no alley access and you got to trench all the way out to the front,
yeah,
that increases, your bid. If you got to add, if you have to tear down all the walls and just keep one, because a lot of these garage conversions are pretty old, so
yeah,
they
yeah,
aren't meant to be ready to go, right? And so you kind of have to plan out for all of these what ifs, even with the bid that you currently have. And I think that's a safe place to be in, right? If you get a bid for 150,000 on a garage conversion and you're getting a HELOC loan, for example, right,
yeah,
which probably one of the number one ways that most homeowners are financing their ADUs. Don't go get a HELOC for 150 if you got a bid for 150.
yeah,
Like, don't do that to yourself because you don't know what the final number is going to look like. Give
yeah,
yourself a bit of a buffer and maybe get a HELOC loan for like 180 or 200,000, because if you don't use the full 200K, then you're not going to pay on it anyway. And that's the
yeah,
beauty about the HELOC loan. You pay as you go. So as, disbursements are being done, then you're paying out based off of what you're actually borrowing, not what you requested on the credit line. So yeah, I think that's crucial. And it's so what you said about certain contractors looking at their pipeline. Another one is also, besides the bid, is going to go look at their work, right? And I'm
mhm,
sure you working with so many contractors, I think culture is a big thing. How they keep their sites says a lot
yep,
about how they work. And I know that's a difficult one, like trying to keep clean sites with a lot of these subs is
yeah,
difficult. But how they communicate amongst each other and with, let's say, the project manager or the person who's kind of the superintendent, if you're talking for bigger projects, that really comes into play, like for you to make your decision, not just what you see on paper, but how are they all actually getting along? What's the synergy like there?
yeah.
What are these other projects looking like? What's the quality of the work? And you could do that just by going to some of their other sites nearby.
Yeah, and as you said, I think it's really nice if available to go to something completed and in progress.
Right.
Don't be deterred if you can't go to something that's available because these things get occupied quickly. And
Yeah, and they are difficult to show. Yeah.
homeowners oftentimes are just like, I don't want anybody on site. So you have to rely on some pictures and photo evidence on some of it. But
Yeah, which, we're doing that SB9 ADU open house in Long Beach next month. And it's something that I've been wanting to do, but it's so hard. We have about 22 projects right now, and we only have maybe one or two that we could potentially do an open house on, because the other ones, sellers don't want, or homeowners don't want 10 to 50 people coming
Yeah.
in and out of their house, you know.
Yeah.
And then they just, yeah, nobody wants people in their home, or they're being rented soon as they're being completed. Like, nobody's waiting around for us to do an open house, a grand
Yeah.
open, to showcase to their neighbors and everyone else. They want to get tenants in there right away, because that's part of the reason, or a family member, right?
Yeah.
They want to get a family member or a tenant in there right away. So they are difficult to see. But we've had it where people are like, hey, well, I'd like to go look at one or two, and we'll take one person with us on the site, and we'll try to do it to where we schedule it around the same time that we're going to go do our site visits anyway. And work some flexibility with the current client and then future client. And for the most part, people are okay with bringing 1 to 2 people, but doing an
Yeah.
actual open house like what we're doing next month is rare. And also trying to be mindful of the neighbors. We don't want to have 20
Yeah.
cars outside. So we're doing
It's so
time frame.
incredible that you're able to do that.
I
A,
know.
because that's a super unique project, but B, what I have noticed more than anything with ADUs is that it's really difficult to visualize the small, like your 400 square foot
Yeah.
garage as a unit.
Yes.
People look at this and they're like, this is going to be tiny. Without fail, anytime I've been able to walk somebody through a garage conversion,
Hmm.
the sentiment is always, this feels much bigger than I thought it would, or like I could live here if I was in my early 20s, right? And I was,
Yes. Yes.
single, and it they're really nice spaces when laid out properly. And even, I know this with the one that you're doing has two 1,200 square foot
Mhm.
ADUs. Um, oftentimes people are like 1,200 square feet isn't large enough for a family. It absolutely is
It
when
is. I mean, a lot of the homes in Long Beach, I grew up in West Long Beach,
yeah,
but most houses in Long Beach and Lakewood are somewhere between 800 to 1,500 square feet. These
yeah,
are average homes, and most of them are sitting on a 5,000 to 7,500 square foot lot.
yeah. I mean, those,
Houses were
until
made very small. Like, my dad's home originally in Long Beach was 980 square feet, and the
yeah.
lot size is over 7,000.
I mean, that's how everything was built until like the 90s, basically, late
Yeah,
80s.
so 12, when you think about ADUs, a lot of people think about small spaces, and that SB9 project is one of the bigger ADUs that we
Yeah,
built, 1,200 square feet for each one, which could
yeah,
easily be a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, or 2 2, depending on what how you want that. But
yeah,
I think my favorite model is a 600 square foot ADU with 10-foot ceilings, two and a half, or 1 2 1 and a half, something like that,
yeah,
is like perfect. Not just for like what you can get with functionality and the size of it, but the rentals perform a lot better, because
yeah,
that price range, that rental price there, caters to a lot of millennials and really anyone, because most 600 square foot ADUs that are a 2 1 or a 1 1 are renting for about 24 to 3,200. Those 1,200
yeah,
square foot ADUs are probably going to rent for 32 to 3,600, somewhere in that range. So you don't have a whole lot of tenant pool in that higher priced rental market.
yeah,
So that's why those 4 to 600 square foot ADUs with rents, those rent out and low vacancy rate all year long. So those are like my favorite.
yeah, yeah. The big
They feel really big.
differentiator, yeah.
Yeah,
One of the things you mentioned, high ceilings. High ceilings make such a huge difference in the small
huge for
spaces.
these spaces. Hmm.
But the rent comps in most neighborhoods in LA County, that second bathroom is a huge bump. You're looking at, anywhere from like 150 to $300 a month on something that costs you 15, 20,000 additional
Exactly.
to build. And that is a no brainer. So really doing a deep dive on comps before you commit to a specific build. You might be looking at a garage conversion, but you have the space.
Right.
And you
But look at
realize like,
the
oh
rentals. Yeah.
yeah, if I blew out this wall and added 300 square feet, it's totally worth it. Or maybe it's not, it just depends. You have studios in, Santa Monica or Venice that are renting for $3,000 a month. And if you're converting a garage at 150, 180,000, that is the
We did
best money
one.
you can spend.
We did one in San Clemente,
Yeah.
500 square feet, 3,500 a month.
Yeah.
500 square feet. It's insane. Not
Yeah.
everybody's going to be like that, but that anywhere down the coast, you're looking at about that. We also have a couple midterm rentals in Hermosa Beach that I
Yep.
manage, and yeah, I mean those are probably double that, which is insane. But to your point, like yeah, these smaller units with the right functionality, high ceilings, capped-in windows if it's behind like the main home, just to give it a bit more privacy,
Yep.
always helps. But yeah, those are all good pointers. How can people connect with you and like work with you, especially in like the areas that you're currently focusing on?
Yeah. So, what I have done after working with these hundreds of contractors is I set up a very small network of highly vetted GCs that have passed the basic metrics, background checks, reference checks, job sites, but also have incredible feedback over dozens and dozens of projects I've worked with them independently on. It's called andhouse.co, ANDHAUS.
I'm gonna put the website up as
All
well.
right, cool. Thank you. And the goal is just to connect you with the right builder for the right project. Kind of as I was talking about earlier, not all builders are great for all projects. If you're
That
doing
was such a good point. Yeah.
like if you're doing a kitchen remodel, you don't want somebody that's building 5,000 square foot homes. It's just not in
Yeah,
their.
or even ADUs, right? Like Cameron,
Yeah,
he has gotten requests for a couple renovations, and he'll do it if it makes sense. If it's the main
he's
home
all doing
plus
an
the
ADU.
ADU.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. But
yeah,
just for the renovation itself, or like a kitchen remodel or a
yeah,
bathroom remodel, it doesn't make sense. So you're absolutely right. Not just the bid that you're looking at, but who is this type of contractor that you're looking for? And there's different types of contractors. So
yeah.
that was such a huge gem that you dropped today. So thank you so
Okay,
much for your
yeah,
time. I
yeah, of course.
appreciate it, and I'll make sure to have all of your contact information so people can reach out to you and connect. And I know I won't see you at the open house, but maybe we'll have future collaborations on other things, I'm sure.
Please. Yeah. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything you're doing. Keep killing it, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Cool. Thank
Thank
you. Have a good
you.
one.
Bye.
Bye.